beneath the canopy of the ancient forest, where the sunlight barely kissed the ground. A little girl and her grandmother walked along narrow, winding trails. The woods were thick with shadows and the whispers of rustling leaves, but the pair moved with quiet confidence, their journey a blend of routine and wonder. The girl, with her small backpack brimming with food, skipped lightly along the path, her voice lifting in cheerful tunes that danced through the air. Her grandmother, steady with a cane in one hand and a tent strapped to her back, followed close behind, pulling a bag on wheels, never letting the girl stray too far ahead. As they ventured deeper into the heart of the forest, the girl began to sing a different tune, one that seemed to carry a touch of magic. White dragon, pure as snow, in your warmth I find my glow. With wisdom deep and heart so kind, you saved a girl, her fate entwined, shimmering her hair like a ruby flame, and eyes of blue, forever claim. Her skin aglow, a light so rare, a mythic stone she'll always wear. The girl paused, her eyes bright with curiosity. Granny, what does entwined mean? The grandmother was surprised for a moment, then laughed softly. It was a word in your song. The little girl's eyes turned sad and she asked, Yeah, it sounded pretty. So you're saying it's not a real word? Grandmother smiled and replied, I didn't say that. To be clear, you chose the word perfectly. Entwined means twisted or woven together, often in a way that is very close or connected. It describes people whose fates, lives, or stories are closely linked with each other. The little girl, now full of joy and as happy as a puppy, said, But Granny, did a dragon really help a girl? The grandmother stopped, her gaze sweeping the familiar forest as if searching for memories hidden within the trees. A gentle smile played on her lips as she answered, The sun will soon go to sleep, my dear. We must set up our tent and start a fire to warm our food. Once that's done, I'll tell you the second part of the story. The girl's face lit up with excitement, but she remained close by, never out of her grandmother's sight. Okay, I'll gather the branches for the fire, she exclaimed, her voice filled with eager energy as she began to pick up twigs from the forest floor. The grandmother watched her granddaughter with fondness, her heart warming at the sight. Tonight, as the stars emerged and the fire crackled, a story of dragons, magic, and ancient secrets would unfold, bridging the past and present under the watchful gaze of the forest. After a little while, the tent was set and the branches were gathered. While the grandmother started a fire, the girl busied herself by taking out some food. The grandmother called out, Come here, sweetheart. Let's eat and renew some energy, and then I'll tell you more of that story. They sat down on a log, opened their warm canned food, and began eating, enjoying the warmth of the little campfire. The grandmother took a deep breath and began the tale. The dragon flew up the mountain, its wings cutting through the air, with a power that made the earth tremble below. It soared almost vertically, climbing higher and higher until it reached the clouds. But just as the sun's rays threatened to touch the skin of the precious albino girl clutched in its claws, the dragon began to spiral upward, shielding her from the burning light. With a graceful swoop, the dragon landed on the mountaintop, flat as glass. The albino girl, her voice trembling with fear, whispered, But... The dragon interrupted gently. Don't be afraid. It's just the entrance. The grandmother's voice grew softer, more intense, drawing her granddaughter closer with every word. The dragon knocked 3 times on the smooth, flat surface, Suddenly, the ground beneath them trembled as a hidden entrance opened, a massive stone slab sliding down with a deep, rumbling sound. The dragon quickly flew inside, and with a loud bang, the entrance sealed itself, the slab returning to its place as if nothing had happened. The albino girl clung to the dragon's warm, protective body, her heart racing as they descended into the depths of the mountain, where the secrets of an ancient world awaited them. The fire crackled, casting flickering shadows on the trees, as the grandmother's voice wove the tale of dragons and magic, leaving the girl wide-eyed with wonder. The night embraced them, and the forest seemed to listen, holding its breath as the story unfolded. The albino girl crawled off the dragon's paw, her small hands trembling as they touched the cold stone floor. She looked around, her eyes wide with fear and awe, as she saw mysterious silhouettes looming in the darkness, figures that seemed to move and shift with every flicker of the dragon's glowing wings. Only then did she realize that the only light in this vast chamber came from the dragon's shimmering scales, casting an eerie glow that barely pushed back the shadows. A strange, uneasy feeling twisted in the girl's chest. Despite the dragon's warmth, a deep, primal fear gripped her, making her movements erratic as she took hesitant steps into the unknown. The dragon's breathing grew heavier, the sound echoing through the cavernous room like a distant thunder, faster and faster, deeper and deeper, as if the very air around them was thickening with some ancient, unseen force. The little girl in the forest grabbed her grandmother's hand tightly, her small fingers trembling as she leaned closer. Her grandmother looked down at her with a reassuring smile and continued, her voice dropping to a whisper that seemed to draw the darkness in around them. Finally, the dragon exhaled a large ball of fire that hung suspended in the air, casting a warm, flickering light across the vast chamber. "Here is light for you," the dragon rumbled, its voice like the echo of a distant storm. "It will last for some time." The albino girl looked around the immense room, her heart pounding in her chest. The walls were so far away that they seemed to disappear into the darkness, and she couldn't see the other end of the room. She felt small, insignificant, as if she were a single, fragile flame in a world of shadows. But the dragon was there, its presence a towering shield against the unknown. And in that, she found a sliver of courage to step forward, deeper into the mysteries that awaited her. As she approached the dragon, its glowing scales cast a warm, golden light that illuminated the immediate area. The ancient, magical energy radiating from the dragon grew stronger as she neared, drawing her closer with an almost magnetic pull. Her heart raced, a mixture of awe and fear washing over her, as she hesitated before reaching out to touch the creature's radiant scales. The moment her trembling hand made contact, she felt the deep, thrumming power of the dragon's magic coursing through her, filling the chamber with an intensity that matched the rapid beating of her heart. The albino girl's heart was pounding like the wings of a trochilidae, better known to us as a hummingbird, as she stood in the immense, shadowy chamber. The warmth of the dragon's fireball bathed the room in a flickering golden light, but it did little to calm the fear that twisted in her chest. Her small hand trembled as she reached out to touch the dragon's glowing scales, feeling the pulse of its ancient magic thrumming beneath her fingers. The dragon, sensing her fear, lowered its massive head until its eyes were level with hers. The warmth in its gaze reassured her, and its voice, deep and resonant, filled the chamber. I trust you completely, little one, the dragon said, each word carrying the weight of centuries. But there is something I must ask of you, something that no one else can do. You must reach inside me and break off a small piece of my heart. The girl's eyes widened in shock. Your heart, she whispered, her voice trembling with disbelief. But why? The dragon's gaze softened and it gave a slow, solemn nod. This is the only way to awaken the power that lies dormant within you. The peace of my heart will give you the strength you need to face the dangers ahead. You must be brave, for this task is not easy, but I believe in you. The girl swallowed hard, her mouth dry with fear, but she nodded. She knew she had to do this. The dragon had protected her, and now it was her turn to protect something far greater. With a deep breath, she approached the dragon's gaping maw, her heart racing faster with each step. The dragon opened its mouth wide, revealing a throat lined with shimmering scales that glowed with an inner fire. She hesitated, feeling the intense heat radiating from within. But the dragon's steady gaze gave her the courage to continue. She was sweating like a waterfall, her hand trembling as she reached deeper and deeper into the dragon's throat. The heat was almost unbearable, searing her skin as she pushed forward. The deeper she reached, the more the pain intensified, until she thought she could go no further. But then, her fingers brushed against something warm and pulsing, something alive. She knew this was it. Gritting her teeth against the pain, she wrapped her fingers around the small, glowing piece of the dragon's heart, and with a sudden burst of strength, she broke it off. The dragon let out a low, agonized roar as its body convulsed, but it did not pull away. The girl, now holding the small, pulsing fragment of the dragon's heart, stumbled back, her body shaking with the effort. As she watched, the fragment in her hand began to crystallize, turning into a small, smooth stone that pulsed with a deep inner light. The dragon, now missing a piece of its heart, shuddered and shrank before her eyes. In a voice strained with pain, the dragon rasped, "There is a wall full of vines." It coughed, small fireballs turning to fine smoke within seconds. "Take the vines. Make fine strips of them." The dragon's legs wobbled, nearly collapsing, as it coughed out droplets like molten lava. The albino girl, alarmed, pleaded, "Stop. You're in pain. Get some rest." The dragon growled, but even this once mighty sound was weak, laced with suffering. "Take the piece of my heart, braid it tightly, as tight as you can, and wear it like a pendant around your neck." The albino girl, realizing she could do nothing to ease the dragon's suffering, burst into tears. "Almighty dragon, please," she pleaded, her voice trembling with desperation. "Rest and regain your strength. I beg you." Its once mighty form seemed to deflate, its scales losing their luster as it became weaker and weaker. The dragon, now almost powerless, crawled to the far corner of the chamber, its movements slow and labored. It found a pile of furs tucked away in the shadows and, with a final, exhausted breath, lay down upon them. The dragon's great eyes fluttered closed, and it fell into a deep, heavy sleep, its once mighty power reduced to the faint glow of the stone in the girl's hand. The albino girl whispered, "Thank you," her voice barely audible as she gazed at the weakened dragon with a mix of gratitude and sorrow. The girl's heart ached as she watched the dragon, now so fragile and vulnerable. But she knew what she had to do. She took the glowing stone and, following the dragon's instructions, began to gather the vines that grew along the chamber's walls. She tangled the vines into thin strips, just as the dragon had told her, and braided them around the stone. She tried again and again, her hands shaking with the effort, until the braids were so tight that even the mighty stone couldn't fall out. As she finished the task, she felt a strange sensation wash over her. The stone began to glow brighter, its warmth spreading through her hands and up her arms. She hesitated for a moment, then slipped the braided stone around her neck. The moment it touched her skin, the stone's power surged through her. Her pale skin began to glow faintly, an otherworldly light radiating from within. Her light blue eyes started changing, shrinking at first until they looked almost like a mouse's eyes, small and beady. But then, with a sudden, explosive burst, they shined brightly, growing larger and more vibrant. She closed her eyes, overwhelmed by the transformation, and when she opened them again, they were dark blue and nearly glowing, like the deepest part of the ocean. Her white hair, once soft and fine, began to change color. It darkened at the roots, turning a deep, rich red that spread down the strands like fire. But it wasn't just any red. It was ruby red, gleaming in the dim light like a crown of flames atop her head. The girl stood there, transformed, feeling the immense power of the dragon's heart coursing through her veins. She was no longer just an albino girl, lost in the depths of a mysterious mountain. She had become something more, something powerful and ancient, with the strength to face whatever darkness lay ahead. The stone around her neck pulsed with a steady rhythm, a reminder of the dragon's sacrifice and the immense responsibility she now carried. The chamber was silent, save for the soft, steady breathing of the sleeping dragon, now powerless and at rest. The girl knew her journey was far from over, but she was ready to face whatever lay ahead. With newfound determination, she straightened her back and took a confident step forward. But as soon as her foot touched the cold stone floor, a wave of dizziness crashed over her. The immense power within her suddenly became overwhelming, surging through her body like an unstoppable tide. She stumbled, her vision blurring as the chamber began to spin around her. The strength that had just moments ago filled her with purpose now felt like a crushing weight. Too much for her fragile form to bear, her legs gave way, and she crumpled to the ground. The last thing she saw before darkness claimed her was the faint glow of the heartstone around her neck. Its light pulsed once more, as if in response to her collapse, then faded as she lost consciousness. The girl grabbed her grandmother's hand and yelled, "No, please! The albino girl can't die!" Her sudden outburst echoed through the forest, cutting through the stillness like a knife. The once calm night was now filled with the heavy silence that followed her cry. The grandmother, momentarily stunned, quickly gathered herself. "Shh, sweetheart, don't scare the forest," she whispered gently, pulling the girl closer. "Everything will be fine. It's just a story." The girl, realizing she had been caught up in the tale, slowly began to relax, releasing her tight grip on her grandmother's hand. She took a deep breath, her eyes still wide with lingering fear, but the comforting presence of her grandmother began to soothe her. But just as she began to calm down, something caught her eye, something just beyond the flickering light of the campfire. Her gaze fixed on the darkness, and suddenly, a wave of terror crashed over her, more intense than before. Her heart raced as she clutched her grandmother again, her voice trembling. "What is that?" The grandmother turned her head toward where the girl was staring, and her blood ran cold. Behind the warm, protective glow of the fire, she could see it too. Large, menacing teeth and countless glowing eyes, watching them from the shadows. The creatures seemed to be waiting, biding their time in the darkness, their presence sending a chill through the air. To be continued.
Thank you for your support. I'll be back soon, so please don't forget to press the like button and leave a comment. I look forward to seeing you again soon.